Okay, I think some more folks might join us as we get started, but to not eat into our time here today, welcome. Again, my name is Carolyn, and I'll be answering some of the questions, of course, today, but then trying to pass it off along to all of the rest of the folks we have here. So to get started, just to walk through a couple of things. Of course, this is the MSBA Ask Me Anything webinar. We're going to be going over some questions that y'all have previously shared with us. Of course, if you have additional questions, we will have time for those today as well. So let me go through a couple of just intro slides here. Just some housekeeping to start. Please keep yourself on mute if you're not speaking, just so there's no background noise. Your camera is optional, but very much welcomed. So it's good to see each other's faces in this time of virtual everything. And like I said, you're welcome to ask questions. You can use the chat box at the bottom of your screen. We'll be checking in periodically on any of those questions. And then, of course, we are recording this session today. So the link to the recording will be available afterwards, and that'll be posted on our YouTube channel. Just a little bit of background just to get us started. Of course, our Albers MSBA program did launch in 2016, and we are currently ranked #1 in the Northwest by the most recent 2021 US News and World Report. We also have a 100% placement rate for our MSBA program. And of course, this does encompass both face-to-face and online, and we are going to be covering both of those here today. Your panel today is, of course, myself, the coordinator for the face-to-face program, and then as our current student for the MSBA program face-to-face, John Lim. John, would you like to say a few words?
Hello, everyone. My name is John, and I'm originally from South Korea, and I'm right now currently pursuing a face-to-face Master of Science in Business Analytics program. Glad to see you all and pleasure to speaking with you today.
Thank you, John. Next, we do have Gabe. He is our current student for the MSBA online program. Gabe, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Gabe. From the Seattle area originally. I enrolled in the MSBA program starting summer of 2020, and yeah.
Thank you, Gabe. And then, of course, we have Krysten, who is our admissions advisor for the online MSBA program as well. Krysten.
Hi, yes, thank you everyone so much for joining us. I'm really excited to be here. Again, my name is Krysten, and I work with the online MSBA students and online MSBA candidates as well to help them through the admissions process.
Thank you, Krysten. All right, so I'm going to keep this up for everybody's reference on who's speaking today. But at this point, we are going to go into our introduction, some icebreaker questions that we get commonly asked. So to start off with, our first question that we typically get is, what do admissions look for in potential students' applications that makes them eligible for the program? So to start off, I'm going to be answering as well as Krysten for this. So one of the things that we find in applications that makes them, more competitive and eligible for the program is looking at quantitative background. So whether this be in classes that students have taken in the past, as well as, other work experience in quantitative areas. This can look really good on applications. So whether it be, shown in your resume, shown in your transcripts, or in personal statement essays, these are things to emphasize. Quantitative background can also be shown in the Gmat GRE portion. This is, of course, optional for this year, but that is one piece that you can also include that makes you more eligible for the program. Krysten, would you like to add anything to that?
Sure. So just to essentially echo what Carolyn mentioned, again, having a quantitative background, having experience working with big data sets, having experience working with programming languages, specifically R and Python, if possible, are all some key indicators of being able to tell if this program would be a good fit and a good match for you, and are also some things that we look for in applicants.
Great, thank you. All right, our second question that we get most commonly is, if I don't have a GMAT score, can I still be accepted? This also goes for a GRE score, since we do accept both tests. For this, again, it is optional for the upcoming fall 2021 year, and this is both for online and face-to-face. It's optional across the board. So if you have a score, it can make you more competitive, but if you do not have a score, you can still be accepted. Of course, as I referenced before, if you're able to show your quantitative skill set and of course other aspects that can make you competitive in those other materials, that can lead to your admission without a score.
Carolyn, can I jump in for a second?
Yes, of course.
My name is Nathan Colaner. I'm the program director. And I just wanted to add that sometimes there's some confusion about whether the GMAT or GRE is best. And the answer is that we're happy to take either score. There's an easy way to translate, what you got on the GMAT to what you would get on the GRE or vice versa. So from our perspective, it's one's not really preferable to the other. From your perspective, I would advise you to think more seriously about the GRE. And the reason is because the GRE is a more general test that's going to be taken in more fields. So for example, if you decide to apply for a different degree next year, like if you decide not to do this, or if you do this and then, 5-10 years later, you decide to get another kind of degree, your GRE score is still going to be good. The GMAT score is only for business school. Just like LSAT is only for law school and MCAT is only for medical school. So we take it, but if you apply for a degree at a non-business degree, they won't take your GMAT score. So sometimes it's better for a better option for people to take the GRE.
Thanks for that, Nathan. I appreciate the addition. Yes, that is a really good thing to keep in mind when looking at the different tests available. All right, so one of the next more commonly received questions that we get is, what's the difference between your on-campus program and your online program? And again, myself and Krysten are going to go over some of the aspects. As the face-to-face coordinator, I can speak to that one a little bit more. So one of the things that our face-to-face program offers that's different than the online is that it only starts once a year in the fall quarter. And of course, all of the classes are designed to be face-to-face. Due to COVID this year, of course, we are completely virtual, but we hope that by next fall, keeping an eye on how the situation is in Seattle, we're hoping to either be maybe some classes face-to-face, but potentially we might still be virtual. But ideally, we will be back on campus if possible. So the start dates are different. The online program does start every single quarter. The duration is different as well. For the on-campus program, you can choose between a 12-month, a 15-month, or a 24-month duration, as you have choices on how many classes you take per quarter. These also come into play with the electives, as there are electives on the face-to-face program. Krysten, can you speak to the online program?
Sure, definitely. So the online MSBA program does vary just with regards to start dates. For instance, we do have 4 starts within a year, and we also have more of a rolling admissions as well. So there are a variety of different opportunities for you to start throughout the year. In addition to that, the timeline to complete the online MSBA program is also a bit different for the face-to-face. On average, taking 1 to 2 classes every 10-week quarter. Because our quarters are in 10-week time spans, you can anticipate completing the full degree in as few as 2 years. In addition to that, the online MSBA doesn't have the elective option. However, you do still access and have access to the same level of quality, that's offered in both the campus experience. It's also incredibly immersive, and we really take necessary steps to ensure that we're incorporating that immersion and that engagement piece, even though it is a virtual online program.
Thank you, Krysten. I do see that we have one question in the chat, and so I'm going to jump over there briefly. The question to everyone was, let's see, is international student transcripts must be assessed by a third party if a school already provided a GPA? So with international student transcripts, since they were earned outside of the US, an agency evaluation is required. This is a required piece by our graduate admissions team across the board for all programs. This agency evaluation will evaluate the GPA overall, as well as course by course. So we do need the course by course evaluation as a required part of your application materials. I hope that helps answer your question, Helen. All right, and so one of the last questions that we get most commonly is, when are scholarships available? Our scholarship deadline is our first deadline of January 20th. So that is coming up early next week, but I do want to just highlight that for everybody. If you are interested in applying for this next fall and are interested in scholarships for our face-to-face program, that scholarship deadline is coming up soon. So there is a separate form that you can fill out, and you can find that on the website. Happy to provide the link to that to anybody who needs it in the chat as well. But that is the only deadline that we have for scholarships. All right, so in this next section of our session today, I am going to be transitioning to asking questions of our current face-to-face student, John Lim. So we have a number of different questions about his program and of course his perspective in it. So to start off, our first question is, John, what's one piece of application advice for someone applying to the program?
Sure. So based on my experience, I would say after you created your account and then you proceed with your application for any of your interest in the Albers graduate program. So I would say, first of all, you pretty much, I would say, need everything listed within the application requirement, even for I personally think even including the optional. So let's say definitely strong Gmat or GRE score would be very good, as well as if you have a very strong undergraduate cumulative GPAs. And definitely you need to update your resume up to date. Better if having and then it's also good that if you have any of the business or data analyst related experience, whether it's internship or actual professional experiences. And I personally want to highlight this part regarding the personal statement or letter of intent that's indicated within the application. It is optional, but I would strongly encourage. And I based mine because I was also applying with other programs within the Seattle University, and then the essay questions were in a similar format. So I tried to follow that as well as the 300 words essay, which is part of the application materials for the MSBA face-to-face program. And there are two different questions that you can choose either one of the two. And I personally chose the question, you'll later see it, but it was about the job you'd like to have after graduating. One thing that I really want to point out is that for both personal statement as well as the 300 words essay, please proofread your grammar and or word choices in case if it's awkward or it doesn't flow well, if possible. And as well as if you have more time, then definitely check your essays from your peers or networks, because they do have different perspectives about it. So those are my recommendations for yours.
Great, thank you, John. The second question is, what are good skills or knowledge for an applicant to have before starting the program?
Yeah, so I would say, first of all, the basic knowledge of programming languages in Python, R, and SQL are primary, because those are the three languages that are primarily used within the face-to-face MSBA program. So the Albers Graduate School of Business and Economics provide after getting accepted, I was talking about the bootcamp, sorry, and then like 2 to 3 weeks prior to the start of the program in fall. So at that time, it is good for you to learn some syntax, because every language has common logic, but they are in fact different in terms of syntax. And second of all, I would say definitely the statistics and or economics theory, for example, regarding normal distributions, p-value, linear or nonlinear regressions, and last but not least, the probability. And definitely, last but not least, the calculus knowledge is also needed. So for example, multi-dimension functions and its derivations, not necessarily, it doesn't go up to integration parts. And all those three things are actually, in fact, the prerequisites for entering the program. So I would highly recommend, if you already completed those back when you're in undergrad, I strongly suggest you review them before you actually get into the program, because it is a rigorous program. So.
Great, thanks for that. All right, so the next question is about some tips. So John, do you have some tips for students on how to succeed in the program?
Sure, so I would say definitely in general, try to really enjoy and be engaged in terms of like excitement in problem solving, as well as the data analysis itself, because throughout the course and program, you're going to be learning how to create the exploratory data analysis, descriptive, predictive, and prescriptive processes. So you're going to encounter pretty much a lot of frustrations to an extent, yet as well as the moment when you'll go like, yes, this works, like all this functions and works. So I want to highlight that. And also definitely regarding the research skill for myself. So I do not have any of the programming or like a business analysis background. So you will also face a lot of challenges in terms of putting correct syntax or methods, attributes, or arguments, we call it like that in programming languages within the function. So it is important to know how to search exactly what you want to search for if you're having problem with it, because unlike how we communicate, the computer language requires very precise syntax. So even within a comma or so. So I would highly recommend you to learn also how to search for what you want to search for within the Googles or any other platforms that you can benefit from.
Those are some great tips. Thanks, John. So the next question is about scheduling. With the face-to-face program, there are different schedules that you can choose depending on how many classes you want to take per quarter. John, can you speak to what your schedule is and how you made that decision?
Yes, sure. So first of all, I wanted to quickly correct. So there are tracks for 12 months within completing within 8 years, and as well as the 18 months, not 15, which is actually what I'm pursuing right now. So this is my last quarter. So I'm currently pursuing 18-month program. And actually, I want to kind of point out that because it is a little ambiguous, since when I first joined the program in 2019 as an international student, the minimum number of credit hours per quarter had to be 9 per credit hours per quarter. But since from the beginning of the last year, it was reduced to 6 credits per quarter. So it became more flexible to an extent for international students particularly. So, but then once you get into the program, then you will have time to discuss for your best plan with your academic advisor, since every student's like work-life balance is different. Some students might be attending the program for full time and then doing the on-campus part-time job, or vice versa, doing the part-time student with the full-time job, or one can be father or mother of a child. So that really depends on how you want to plan out how many of the credit hours you want to take per quarter. And I would strongly recommend you discuss that with your academic advisor, because that's exactly how I did. And then eventually came up with pursuing 18-month program.
Fantastic. And I do want to emphasize for prospective students who are here today, you are going to be able to meet your academic advisors after you're accepted to the program. It is a part of the onboarding process, so you'll have plenty of time to discuss schedules. Another aspect of the face-to-face program is you get to choose some electives. So John, how did you choose your electives for the program?
Sure. So this also connects with how I advise and then had the counseling with my academic advisor and chose my best of interest. So Albers School provides a lot, and then within the face-to-face MSBA program, there are a lot of different electives from different areas, including accounting, business analytics itself. Sometimes that's jointly offered with the computer science department, economics, finance, math, or statistics related to the business analytics, and last but not least, marketing. And I want to also point out, once you're getting accepted, the email is sent from academic advisor again quarterly around the time for registration. And what is recommended most related to the big business, and what I think is most recommended for me is I took most of my electives related to the business analytics that are jointly offered with the computer science department, because I'm interested in more like a machine learning and or artificial intelligence within the business analytics that can be incorporated in different fields as well. So, but then there are a lot of options which can be offered and then can be informed from the academic advisor and or within the Albers School's website. So please refer to that as well.
Great, thank you. All right, so there's a couple more questions we do have for you here, John. We're going to be wrapping up this section on face-to-face programs, let's see, right around 12:30, so if you have a few more minutes. John, what's one insight you wish you knew going into the program?
So this must be related to the tips that I informed you earlier. Definitely, I would suggest you watch. Nowadays, there are a lot of free resources available in online. Definitely one of the examples is YouTube. So I would suggest you get used to the syntax within different programming languages, and then how to, for example, assign variables, how to import the packages correctly, and then all those like the details, I would say, within the programming language, because like I said, there is going to be frustrations, even if you kind of like make a mistake within a comma or one character. So I highly suggest that, as well as I want you to also review the knowledge of economics and statistics if it has been long enough that you can remember well, because everything is all interrelated. So statistics knowledge is integrated with the R programming, for example, and then some of the linear programming packages, for example, or even the economics theory of how the demands and supply that has to do with forecasting and then projecting the business performances and model. So I highly suggest you review the prerequisites that are indicated, particularly for me, because I told you I don't have any programming experiences back in undergraduate. So those are the two that I really wish to highlight as for the good insights and tips.
Yeah, thanks, John. And I wanted to add, it's not a requirement that you know anything about programming languages before you start. You will get that information. But what John says, I think, can be really valuable. There's a lot of both programming and statistics. It would help if you can do some review on your own before. And as John said, YouTube has a lot of great resources. There's also fairly cheap classes like EDX. They have a lot of very cheap, some of them free classes in like statistics, or it says Python for analytics, or I use Udemy, UDEMY. There's other sorts of things like that. It doesn't hurt to get a little bit of knowledge, so that when you encounter those concepts in the class, it's more like you're reviewing rather than you're meeting them for the first time. It's just much harder to meet something for the first time, and there's going to be a lot of other things going on too. So if you've already got, you've done some self-study on statistics and programming languages, everything's just going to go a lot smoother for you. But it's not a requirement.
Thank you so much, Nathan.
That's a good clarification. Thank you. So that does lead into the next question I had about, John, are there any specific programming languages you'll study in the program or have learned through the program?
Oh, sorry, I think I lost you at the very last. Would you please repeat the question once more?
Oh, John, the question was, what are some of the specific programming languages students will study in the programming? In the program, of course, and ones that you've learned in the program.
Yeah, so within the Albers, the majority of the classes are dealing with either, no, not either, among Python, R, or SQL. And depending on different classes, the professors teach and use different programming languages. And so far, like after pursuing up to this point, those 3 languages are the ones that are mostly used. And so I would highly recommend you review through the online resources that Dr. Colaner informed you. Try to use those resources to learn particularly among those 3 different languages. And you don't need to master or try to be so good at it. You can at least try to get some, concepts or the notion of how the programming languages work among different languages. And yeah, those are definitely the tips. And then the 3 languages that I want to highlight.
And as you search for them, Python is spelled exactly like it sounds, like the big snake. R is just the letter R, and SQL is usually abbreviated SQL and pronounced SQL.
Yes, it's short for the structured query language, and you can search it by.
Great, thank you. All right, John, last question. In this day and age, how do you stay connected to your cohort?
Yeah, so I would say I was pretty lucky in a sense that I started my cohort a little before this such unprecedented time happened. So I was able to directly meet them in the school as well as try to communicate, but definitely because you cannot have every cohort of your classmates within one class. So what we came up as, we kind of set up on a chat room within our personal WhatsApp account, and everybody is pretty much involved in there. Some people kind of share information, some people ask questions, but then because we have one integrated a chat room within the WhatsApp, that's how we all try to stay connected and then get the updates regarding any of the future career online fair nowadays, virtual online career fair, or any of the for example, let's say what's the due date for the assignment, was this day or this day, those kind of casual communications. Yeah, those are all we share that among through the WhatsApp applications.
Fantastic. Those sound like great ideas to stay connected regardless in the future for all students. All right, thank you so much, John. I really appreciate your insights as our current student right now in our face-to-face program. At this time, I'm going to transition over to Krysten, who's going to be asking some questions to Gabe, our current student in our online MSBA program.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Carolyn. And thanks again, John. And Gabe, thanks so much again for joining us. So we did just want to transition into just kind of talking a little bit more to the online MSBA experience and essentially what that be like for what we offer within the predominantly online program. So some of the questions that we've gotten, the first one, I'll go ahead and get started, is how will I use my learnings from the MSBA degree? So the online MSBA program is essentially designed to help shape you into a fluent communicative data translator, able to thrive in data and intelligence analyst roles that are currently in high demand. So upon successful completion of this program, you should be able to apply appropriate analytical methods to find solutions to business problems that achieve stated objectives, demonstrate ethical decision-making in all business situations, communicate technical information to both technical and non-technical audiences, in addition to exhibiting effective collaboration and leadership skills. Gabe, can you speak to how you've been able to utilize some of the learnings thus far in your classes and maybe your day-to-day or in your current role?
Definitely the data translation aspect is really important. Each class kind of has the final project is basically called a data translation challenge, where you're basically taking in raw data that, say you had imported it in like Excel, like you wouldn't, there's too many rows, too many columns for you to even be able to scroll through all of it. And then like we might be using Python, we might be using R, we might be using SQL to make this smaller and like create an actual business problem through looking at the statistics and then using our programming abilities and kind of the statistical and mathematical concepts in order to actually solve a problem with a data set that would have otherwise been really hard, would have been really difficult to work with. And it's actually helped me out a lot in my work, being able to, for example, something that I might do in Excel that could take 20 minutes, it's just like, boom, okay, I can do it in 2 now. So, yeah.
Nice. Excellent. Well, great. And thanks for sharing that. So one of the other questions that we get pretty frequently with this being an online program is the login time. So do you have to log in at a specific time for this class, for your classes?
You actually don't, which is really helpful. Usually I usually log in like say Monday evening after work, since I've been working, well, now I've like worked 2 jobs while I'm in the program, but I'm usually logged on like Monday evening. I'll do my readings. I'll just look at the assigned readings. I'll do the assigned readings. Probably Tuesday, I'll watch the lectures, and then Wednesday through whenever my homework is due, I'm basically just working on the classwork after completing the assigned readings and going through the lecture.
So pretty flexible, it sounds like. So it sounds like you pretty much have autonomy over when you log in, as long as your assignments, of course, are completed by the deadlines. Excellent. Perfect. So another question that we have, and this one kind of references more of just the beginning stages of actually getting started in classes, but what is the R in Python prep course actually like?
The prep course it really, don't let it intimidate you. Like, it is quite simple. There's just a quiz for both at the end that you have to pass. You can take the quiz as many times as you want. So say there's a concept you don't understand and maybe you like miss 2 questions with that, you can, once you understand that concept, you can retake it. And then I believe, is it 1 week or 2 weeks that you get for it? I don't remember.
I believe it's about 2 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah, I believe I had 2 weeks. So I finished the prep course in both prep courses in about 3 days. Similar to what John said, I went on the internet and I looked for like other places that could like make me more comfortable programming, and that was really helpful for me. So just don't let the prep course intimidate you that much. If you can put in maybe like an hour into it for 4 days, you'll probably be done.
Excellent. Thanks. And just to echo and to add to that, again, as he mentioned, don't be intimidated by it. The RN Python programming prep courses provide a brief refresher and, somewhat of a basic understanding of those programming languages. And those are actually 2 highly sought after in-demand skill sets currently in the business analyst market. So definitely something to really help with that assimilation piece as you start classes as well. So don't be afraid to dive right in. The next question we have, and I believe, Gabe, you actually spoke a little bit about this, the data translation challenges. What is the data translation element of the curriculum, and how can this give me a competitive edge?
The data translation element in the online program is kind of when you apply all the programming and mathematical concepts that you had developed throughout the quarter, and then you are actually given a business problem to kind of like analyze and see if there's anything useful that you can find out in order to solve it. So, for example, when I was learning a class with SQL, we were doing a lot of homework kind of out of the textbook, and that actually gave me like a really good understanding of all the concepts and how to actually present data that I wanted to show. But then when we were actually given a business problem, and I was working on the data translation project, I was honestly surprised with how like fluent I was able to be with the SQL programming language. And it's really just kind of like a cultivation of everything that you've been learning throughout the quarter. And then this is where you actually get to apply it. And it'll be a lot more interesting than some of the homework that you get. Because like, for me, it's kind of been like, when I get to these projects, I'm like, oh, like this is the part that I really want to be able to show what I learned. And then it's not just the programming aspects, it's how can you communicate this in a business setting as well. So most of them will have a writing aspect to them, where one part of the writing aspect might be explain to someone like why you used the code that you used, what your code is showing. And then you will have another communication aspect to it where you're explaining it to a non-technical audience, and you might want to convert your findings into, oh, like if we do this, our revenue can increase X% or something like that. And so it gives you hands-on experience in not only the programming aspects, but also how to communicate data analytics projects.
Excellent. Yes, perfect. And to add to that, just as you mentioned, the data translation challenges are designed to model the problems that you'll face in professional settings. So essentially to work to help shape you into a data fluent, multifaceted professional who can overcome those problems as well. So excellent. Thanks so much again for sharing, Gabe. So the next question that we also get is, and I think you've spoken to some of this already, but what are some of the specific programming languages that I'll study in the Online MSBA program?
It's very similar to what the languages that John was bringing up, Python, R, and SQL. We got a bit of experience in MongoDB as well. So those are the Python, R, and SQL are the basic three. So if there's any programming languages that you might want to explore prior to you starting the program, those are the three for sure.
Excellent, nice. And then you mentioned that you've noticed just in taking the classes so far that you've become much more fluent in utilizing the programming languages. So that's awesome. Now, what analytical tools do you feel, the question that we have is, what analytical tools will I be able to use after graduating from the Online MSBA?
So it's really a robust set of tools. This is the only way I can put it, whether it's data management, machine learning, manipulating data, data visualization, and it's the entire process from pre-processing your data to cleaning the data to finding patterns and actually analyzing the problem that you're looking for. So it's the entire process. And then also, as I mentioned, in the data translation aspect, it's the communication aspect as well. When you're not just sitting on your computer, it's not just preparing you for sitting on your computer and coding and using these analytical tools. It's also very important in these positions to be able to communicate why your analysis is important, or else no one will listen to you if you can't communicate why the results of a machine learning project or why a specific data visualization is important to a company. So it's really important that you not only focus on the coding aspect, but understand that being able to communicate what you found is important as well. So
Wonderful. Excellent. So some other questions, just kind of wrapping up with time. What's one piece of application advice? So one piece of application advice that I would offer is certainly starting the application process as soon as possible. Again, with this degree, we do definitely, and as our panelists have mentioned today, taking advantage of the optional personal statement to highlight some of the quantitative factors or things that you've done in your current positions, in your undergraduate experience, any projects that you've done, essentially, because this is a very quantitative degree. That is something that definitely speaks to the admissions committee when reviewing your admissions profile. So we certainly encourage you start the application process as soon as possible. Again, with the online MSBA, we do have 4 starts annually within a year, and can in most cases generate a decision on admissions within about 5 to 7 business days. The sooner you get your application in, the sooner we can start the admissions review process. Again, granted, you are accepted into the program, you'd be able to gain access to a virtual campus tour that we conduct with our support team, a student success coach that you are assigned, in addition to beginning the R and Python programming bootcamp. So another question that I'm sure a lot of people probably have with this being a virtual learning environment is support, right? So what can you expect as far as feedback from professors?
Well, my first quarter in the program, I was really surprised that I never had to email any of my professors. They set up a Slack channel, or it could be like a Teams channel where you can message your entire class, or you can message one classmate individually, or just message a professor individually. And this was very helpful for me because say I just had like a quick question on a homework assignment, and like I was totally fine with the whole class seeing it. I could just send it in there, and I wouldn't have to worry about, is my professor online or not, and someone might reach out to me and respond. But if you're having trouble understanding an entire concept, that's probably when you need to go in there and message a professor individually. They'll host office hours that you can join, and for the whole class, or if it doesn't fit with your schedule, which was honestly happened with me a lot, especially with work, like 2 p.m. is just not a time I'm typically free. So a lot of times I would end up meeting my professor at like 6:30 a.m. or something like that. And they're really flexible about giving opportunity for you to get feedback from them. So.
Wonderful. And I think you had mentioned before that you were able to schedule about a 2-hour time slot once too with one of your professors, right?
Yeah.
Awesome.
And with group projects, like your whole group can meet with your professor. So that's always helpful, especially if there's any conflict in your group.
Nice. So another question that we generally get as well for the online programs is, what size will the classes be? So we seek to maintain small class sizes, to ensure that each student gets that one-on-one attention that they may need. So class sizes can range to one professor for every 15 students. So again, we do work to keep the class sizes relatively small. Now, we do also have for the MSBA program a residency experience, which actually works to essentially set the foundation of providing all initial candidates who are starting the program out with an opportunity to connect, to reach out, to build connections within their cohort. It also helps with transitioning into their very first class as well. So right now we are hosting the residencies online. They are one weekend day and are hosted virtually. But the residency experience, again, provides students with an opportunity to build a foundation and a structure within the program, in addition to building close connections with your cohort. And so again, to wrap up, the very last question we have is what networking opportunities are available? And Gabe, certainly feel free to chime in. I know you did mention the Slack channel where you can connect about anything, your homework, assignments, job referrals. So definitely if you want to, speak a little bit to some of the networking opportunities you've experienced so far. I think
Sorry, I was muted. But especially with your cohort and just having a Slack channel as the quarter goes on and your assignments get more difficult and you're working on the project, that's kind of when people tend to communicate more, and you'll be just like reaching out and communicating to people. And then once the class is over, is kind of like a time where you're just like, wow, like we really all did this together. And it kind of just like breaks the ice for the entire class. So I think after my first quarter was over, that was really when I had started to have members of my classes reach out to me, or I might reach out to them, and people really come from all backgrounds in this program. And there's so many industries where there's a high demand for people with these skills. So whether it's someone who might work, like I know Walmart, every company from Walmart to Amazon uses a lot of data analytics. So there's really connections everywhere in your class.
Nice. Well, Gabe, thanks again so much for sharing today. I'll go ahead and hand it back over to Carolyn.
Great. Thank you so much, Krysten and Gabe, for those fantastic answers to those questions. All right, so at this time, we're going to wrap it up with our conclusion questions that we often get. But of course, if we still have time, we're happy to answer any additional questions after that as well that you guys have. I have been seeing some great ones in the chat and have been responding to those as they come up, but we will have some few minutes at the end as well. So as a conclusion, question for Gabe and John, what are some examples of positions or industries that current students are looking to pursue?
Okay, I'll quickly go first. So definitely the position title-wise is going to be related to business or data analyst. Could be data scientist, data engineer, and even the program or project manager that has to do with data analytics. And I would say that industry-wise, because every businesses or within different industries require specific and precise data analytics, and because that's what can show one's business performances and models, and so therefore try to give some improvements or any of the troubleshooting if necessary. And yeah, I would definitely say that because every areas of business or even industry or team, they all need to have a sort of like a data analysis team or so, or even the one or two members. So I would say that those are the type of position titles that I want to highlight. Is there anything else that you want to add, Gabe?
I guess the only thing I would add was that every marketing team needs someone for data analysis. Finance obviously is very important, or even if it's in like the supply chain area of a company, like there's still like a lot of need for data analysis in that area as well. So the job industry is really trending towards having like a data analyst in basically every facet of a business to get an edge. So.
Great, thank you so much. It is always, changing with different positions coming on board every so often. So it's always good to know what positions they're looking for, as well as, being current students, what you guys might be looking for as well as you get closer to graduation. One of our last most common questions, just to wrap this up on our side, is how difficult is it to find a job in analytics, right? This depends on what background you may come in with, or of course, what area you're looking to pursue after graduation. But one of the things I want to really emphasize is that our MSBA programs do have a 100% placement rate here at Albers. And one of the reasons for this is, of course, our wonderful placement center. We do have a dedicated Albers Placement Center for our students, well staffed with people who have really good connections in the industry, of course, in addition to the professors who have connections and help our students find internships as well as full-time positions after graduation. So I want to emphasize that point, since it's a really great resource that hopefully all of you, once you're accepted, ideally, will be able to tap into that resource as students. All right, so let's see here. I'm just checking the chat really quick. I do see that we have an additional question that I'm just going to read out for everybody. Is from Kimaya. For the face-to-face program, what percentage of the program is focused on projects, hands-on learning? And if I may, Nathan, or perhaps Gabe and John, for John, for the face-to-face program, might I direct that question over to you?
Yeah, I'll say a couple of things, and then John, with this firsthand knowledge, might want to weigh in as well. We do have several classes that are mostly projects. The capstone, of course, at the end. There's some other courses that are project oriented. Almost every class, though, has some projects in it. There's not a lot of, just here's the information and now you take a test on it. It's more hands-on in general. That's how I would characterize it. What do you think, John? How would you describe it?
I definitely agree with you, Dr. Colaner. And so just including the capstone project that I just recently finished with my other group members, it was entirely project-based, which we cooperated with the, for example, King County Prosecution Office. And some of the other classes are definitely eventually have at least one group project. And so, or even individual projects. So everything is based on like a real life example, or kind of trying or altering a little bit of the information because due to the confidentialities. But then in general, everything is guided for the MSBA program or online MSBA program students to engage in what the actual data is to be processed, and then get the outputs based on the real life examples and then hands-on learning. So. Hope I answered your question well, Kimaya.
Awesome. Thank you both for that. All right. It looks like we do have 6 more minutes before the top of the hour and the end of our session today. So I want to take this time to open it up for any additional questions that anybody may have. You could either jump in verbally or, of course, add it to the chat box. Right. Well, while people are thinking, oh, here we go. I do see additional question. Is there any similarly class with the MBA program? So I can speak to that. As the MSBA program is very specific, there are core required classes that only MSBA students are allowed to take. Versus with our MBA program, of course, they have a different set of core required classes. The MBA, of course, touches on many different aspects of business to be more well-rounded, versus the MSBA does, of course, focus in on analytics. So some of the elective classes may potentially be similar, but mostly they are pretty separate programs.
Yeah, I also want to add quickly, along with what Caroline said, is that I, at least within my experience, I haven't seen anybody who is actually within the professional MBA program within the electives that I took, because not only I took the electives that are particularly for the business analytics, sometimes that are jointly offered with the computer science department, but then also there is my other classmate who is doing the joint degree with both PMBA and then MSBA. Maybe that's how he was able to kind of like try to pursue and then take the both side of the program's aspects. But then, yeah, there will be, as far as I imagine, the elective that could jointly kind of, you can meet some of the students in there, but based on my experience, it was hard to find. So, because it's very specifically for the business analytics regarding.
Mm-hmm. And that's a really great point, John. We do have joint degree programs. So if you are interested in pursuing the business analytics program, of course, with something else, that is an option. And so there is different ways to do 2 different degrees together as one dual. We also have certificate programs, which are available for our face-to-face students, so that you can take an extra 5 classes approximately to get a specialization in a separate area. So if you pursue the business analytics program, we do have a business administration certificate, and vice versa. We do have a business analytics certificate that you can pursue if you pursue a MBA degree. So you can kind of mix and match that way, as well as some smaller versions of a full program. All right, with just a few more minutes left, please feel free to enter any other questions you might have. Of course, Leslie mentioned this is recorded, so this session is going to be posted online after the event. If you ever want to reference back to it, hear what our fantastic students had to say in any of our questions, of course. And in addition, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. Both Krysten and I, of course, you're able to schedule one-on-one appointments with us to see if you have any more specific questions needing answering, or any other information about our program. All right, let's see. We have another question here. How often does the placement fair take place? And what's the probability of students getting converted from internship if you get to a full-time position is the question. So let's see, our placement fair, we do have placement fairs that take place throughout the year. Our placement center does host different events throughout the year to help our students have access to those. But I'm not sure about the percentage of students we have being converted from internship to full-time. Nathan, do you perhaps have any additional information on that?
Sorry, the question is, if you start out with an internship, that's at the same company,
Yes.
you go to full-time. I'm not sure what the percentage is, but it doesn't matter so much just because you're going to be the one with the choice. So this is a field where employers are searching for data analysts. Someday there'll be like too many data analysts in the world, but we're not near that right now. There's like not enough data analysts. So generally you would have the choice probably of continuing employment. You would be in the kind of the driver's seat. But I mean, I don't know of any internship programs that are specifically designed to convert to full-time. There might be some, but in general, that's not a concern because people don't have trouble finding internships or full-time opportunities.
Thanks so much for your input there, Nathan. All right, we are at the top of the hour now, 1 minute after. So thank you all for joining us today. Again, thank you to our fantastic panel, Gabe, John, and of course, Krysten. I appreciate your being here today with your wonderful input. I hope everybody has a great rest of your day.
You too. Thank you, Carolyn.
Thank you so much, Caroline, and everybody.
Thank you.